Hi, this is Abul Hussein coming to you live and direct from London, the United Kingdom. And today I have a very special guest joining me from Ohio, the USA. That's the swing state, as if you like. Now, he is a sales guru, and he is someone who will make selling fun and easy for you. So without a further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Elijah Bowie. Welcome to the show.
What's up, man? I appreciate you for having me on.
Thank you very much for joining us. I know it's kind of making a commitment is quite difficult enough as it is. And I always need to book people like a week or so out in advance. So I really do appreciate your time. So Elijah, give us a bit of background into who you are, what you do, and how you got into the sales game.
Yeah, man. I am a business mentor and investor. I've been the kind of a secret weapon for quite a few big 7 and 8 figure brands and some of everybody's favorite influencers and people that they see ads running around. And I've been in the entrepreneurship game since about 2009 and got into sales out of necessity. Being an entrepreneur, you can have the greatest product, the greatest idea, the greatest whatever it is, but if you can't effectively communicate how it can help somebody and the value of it, you're not going to get very far. So that's really how I got into it, was just out of necessity, to make whatever I was working on at the time work. So
yeah, no, I totally appreciate that, and that's a lot of entrepreneurs as well. If you're not selling something, how are you going to make money unless you're not for profit, I suppose.
Exactly.
People, when they hear of sales and selling, they tend to get scared. Why do you think selling has such a bad or a hard rep?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get nervous because there's been built up all around the world, honestly. I know certainly in North America, in our media and movies and things like that, and entertainment culture, there is a built up negative stereotype or bias against salesmen, right? The salespeople are seen as sleazy, inauthentic, you name it. And generally people want to stay away from attaching themselves to those descriptors. And because that's how it's portrayed, I feel like that's what most people think it is. And so that's why most people are scared. And even if you look at the dictionary definition of selling, I was telling someone this other day, it says that selling is to persuade someone of something. And then if you look at the definition of persuasion, it's to cause, or you could insert force someone to do something specifically through argument. So that's why, because that's our definition of sales.
Brilliant. And, people always think of sales being the hard part of the job. People can set up, run an agency, people can set up any kind of business, I suppose, that requires selling. But, when it comes to the actual doing the selling part, they kind of struggle. In your experience, why do you think a lot of kind of entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with making or closing a sale?
Yeah. So one is what we talked about, right? What they think that actually means. And so they kind of approach it wrong. But then second, more tactical, I'd say that the reason that a lot of people struggle, at least when I come in and see it for them, is kind of two main issues, right? One, they're trying to sell a solution to their prospect's problem, not their prospect's present pain. And then when it gets to presenting what it is that they do, they're trying to they're trying to match their prospect's problem or present pain to their solution versus matching their solution to the present pain. Are the two biggest things. That's usually the two biggest areas I attack with somebody. And when we flip those and make those switches, we just see things immediately. And I'll give you an example of like a problem, two practical ones for people listening. Let's say, you and I gotta meet you, right? Let's say I'm across town and I'm running late and I'm like, oh shoot, I lost track of time. So I hop in my car, and as I'm, maybe you're about 15, 20 miles away. And as I turn my car, I notice, oh dang, yeah, that's right. Last night the gas light came on and I need to get gas, but I'm late. I'll get gas later. right? Well, the fact that my gas indicator is on and I'm going to need to get gas is a problem, but it's within our human nature, right? We all have like a million and one problems in every different area of our lives and business. And what people do with most of their problems is push it off for later, right? Like in that scenario. A pain would be, oh, I never filled up for, for gas. And after I met with you, I went across, I just started driving to meet my mother-in-law who lives in Indiana, a state over. And now I'm in the middle of nowhere and I actually ran out of gas, right? And the next, gas station's 50 miles away. Well, now that's a present pain, right? Because, and here's why the two are so different. Let's say, as I was going on to meet you, let's say I was like, oh, I'll get gas, but the gas station I passed was like $3.58 a gallon. I'm like, oh, no way. I know I can get it cheaper. Well, okay, fair. But now that if we switch over to the present pain situation, dude, if somebody drove by and was like, hey, I got a gallon left in this little tank here, I'll give me $15 and I'll fill it up for you for a gallon, I'd take it, right? So money's not even the issue there. That's how powerful selling to a problem versus a present pain can be. And that's kind of the real, one of the two real issues that I see people have struggled with.
That's a beautiful example, the way you've explained it. That clearly breaks it down. And you talk about kind of, not dealing with the present pain. How can, I suppose, someone who is speaking to a prospect, trying to get them over the line, identify some of those pain points rather than trying to sell them whatever they've got in their toolkit?
Yeah, so the only way you can actually really do it is by asking questions. 99% of the time, the prospect you're talking to is not aware of their present pain. They know they have a problem, but they don't know what the present pain is. An example of that, let's go with the fitness industry for this one. A lot of people in the fitness industry think that they're selling, how to lose weight, right? Or accountability or workouts or nutrition. They're trying to sell Sherry on to lose 30 pounds. But that's not Sherry's actual problem, right? She may think that's her problem, but then you get into this situation where at the end, when you reveal your price, she's like, oh, I don't really know. That's kind of expensive. And all these things because we only sold to the problem. Well, her pain is underneath that problem. And I have to ask questions to uncover that. So for instance, I may do a little bit digging in conversation with Sherry and realize that her present pain is not 30 pounds. And let's say, and I would get her to see this as well, right? Maybe I'd say, well, Sherry, let me ask you a question. If you woke up and you looked yourself in the mirror and you felt confident, you felt sexy, and you looked exactly the way you wanted to, and you stepped on the scale and it said 499 pounds, would that number mean anything to you? Right? And it's an idiotic example, obviously, because that's impossible, but it drives the point home. She'd be like, no, of course not. So your problem's not actually the weight, right? Mm-hmm. She has some type of belief attached to that number, and that's what I need to uncover. And so through conversation, I may figure out that her present pain is, since Sherry's gained the 30 pounds, let's say 3 years ago when she had her last kid, she's had to wake up an hour early every morning, to go into work. And, and the reason she wakes up an hour early, because she goes into her closet, none of her clothes fits, and it takes her an hour to find something where she tries on 6 different outfits. She hates herself for it. She feels bad. She ends up crying. And then, she pulls herself together, puts on makeup, and goes into work. And, at work, she feels like everyone's staring at her. It's summer. She's wearing long sleeves because she doesn't want anyone to, see. Like, that's her daily present pain. And if I can uncover that and sell her a solution to that, well, that's priceless now, right? For her brain. Oh yeah, I'll pay anything to escape that. If I just sell her on, hey, I got some workouts and nutrition in this great community, you'll lose some weight, some pounds. It doesn't, in here internally, it's like, oh yeah, I do want to lose the weight, but not as big. And so that right there is like the biggest way to uncover the present pain is just through questioning.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think a lot of people who go to the gym, they probably will relate to that. Not everyone, especially after a certain age, is going the muscle or anything like that. There are deeper issues at play. Now I want to move on to the idea of consultative selling, because every consultant out there is saying you should not be doing hard sale. Sales is a consultative process, and different people have a different stance or a different meaning to what it is. From your perspective, how do you feel consultative selling works best?
You're right. There is a lot of different definitions for it. I always tell everyone this, right? You got to find something that works with you, that's most comfortable with you. I think my understanding, right, of consultative selling is basically just trying to, take on the role of like a doctor, right? Where I'm truly trying to ask certain questions to get a bigger picture, right? Or a complete picture of what's going on with a prospect. Because when I have that complete picture, then I can give a prescription. And so that's how I see consultative selling. And I think that, some people, like I said, that's different for everyone. Some people version of that would still look like what someone else would call a hard closing or whatever it may be. But I think my definition, that's like the picture, right? Where I'm truly an expert in something and I have to diagnose what's going on, right? That's a consult. And then I need that complete information, because you wouldn't want your doctor to only halfway listen to you or only halfway diagnose and then give you some random prescription for something and make you sick or or worse. So that's how I view it.
Right. Okay. And I suppose that's a great analogy to use, of being a doctor and diagnosing the problem before trying to write the prescription from what you've got to sell, that is. Now let's move on to kind of handling objections, everyone's favorite subject, right? There are quite a few different objections that come up all the time. I need to think about it, I need to speak to my partner. Some classic examples. From your experience, how often are the objections genuine, and how do we spot when they're not genuine, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, so my approach is a little bit different to this. So two things, right? One, if we make those two switches I talked about earlier, going from moving away from trying to solve a problem to solving a present pain, and then matching my offer to that present pain, not matching the present pain to my offer, we find that a lot of that, just about 50% of it, goes away. The reason why is because of what happens up here psychologically. For instance, if someone came and knocked on my door now and wanted to sell me something, we could pick anything, right? And let's say I'm even somewhat interested in it. And it's like $3K. Well, I may or may not, I may be like, oh yeah, it sounds good, but I'll get back to you on it, right? Call me on Tuesday, and then I disappear, right? Let's say, God forbid, at that same time that, my wife or child ended up going to the hospital and we need to perform some procedure and it's $3K, right? Well, maybe I told that guy, I'm like, that's not really in the budget right now. Well, now I'm in the hospital and I'm going to find that $3K, and most likely find that people actually have that $3K. But the thing that happens during a sales call is there's this internal conversation going on in your prospect's head that you're not really privy to. And if you don't give the right information to that internal conversation, they're never going to part from their money, because it is it's a natural human response, right? Our human nature tells us to not part from this, right? Money itself has no value at all. It's paper, right? It's a representation of value. But what we attach to it is everything in the world, right? Like Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, security, status, shelter, food, all those things is what we associate with this. And so because of that, because that's what this represents, our up here, our brain says, hey, stack as much of this as possible, hold on to as much of this as possible, and never spend it, right? That should be our natural programming, which it is. So if I'm ever going to get someone to buy, right, I have to give them the information necessary for in their head for it to go, hey, I need this because it's going to get me one of those human needs. And when we do that, this kind of like veil, this lockdown gets lifted in our brain and says, hey, yeah, you can spend money on that. That makes complete sense. And everyone can kind of do this test. I'm not sure if you ever tried to go buy something, like ever try to make a purchase, especially a bigger purchase, and all of a sudden you just start thinking of all the other things that you need to pay for, like, oh, well, I still need to pay that bill, or I could use this for that. That's that process, your brain going, hey, whoa, like, why are we spending this? So if we address those two, we start to unlift that, and that right there kills most objections, because that is the most powerful thing a human being has, right? If a human being decides up here, hey, if I pay for this, it's going to get me one of these things. Well, again, humans become super resourceful, right? So that kills most objections. Literally, that bypasses logic. And I know I could give all types of scenarios for myself where, whether it's to impress my wife, my now wife at the time, whatever it is, where we're like, that was such a stupid thing, right? But in the moment, it's like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And we bypass logic. So that kills most objections. Then if anything's left, my other way to handle it is, well, I want to address known objections before I ever make my offer, right? And so what I mean by that is, I want to know what my prospect's decision-making process is, right? So I may just ask you, cool, man. So like, obviously you get on this call, you're looking for help with this stuff. Like, when you're looking for help to, let's say, grow your business, right? To grow your business, how do you typically go about making that decision? Do you have a business partner you do it with? Do you, with your spouse? Like, what's that process look like for you? I want to find that out way before I ever make my offer, because then it's not an objection, right? And objections themselves aren't bad. What I should really say is it's not an excuse or a cop-out or a white lie of really saying, hey, I don't think this can really help me, or you didn't do a good enough job explaining it, but I don't want to tell you that because you're a pretty good dude. So instead, I'm just going to say, hey, I got to think about that, or let me talk to my spouse. But if I know that before, if you say, oh yeah, this is how I usually make decisions, cool. I can go into that before my offer, and I can know, and I can say, hey, look, I know you said you usually talk with your business partner and then you talk with your wife, and we can prepare and deal with that when it gets there. So that's how I usually handle it, is in those two ways right there. Mm-hmm. And that usually takes care of it.
Yeah, it's an excellent strategy. You just need to preempt it. And as long as you have a strategy, I suppose, going into the conversation, you should be okay.
Yeah.
In this age of social media, you have so many people trying to sell over Facebook Messenger. People drop you a message, and then they try to build a bit of rapport, and they try to get you on a call. Now, whenever I get those messages where someone asking me this morning whether I wanted to do a 10-minute networking call when I was on another call. And clearly I don't. Now, do these approaches work? And if not, what's the right way to go about selling on social media?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So does cold outreach work, basically? The answer is yes. And you guys I don't have a list of them, but I've done it before. There's a list of multi-million-dollar companies whose sole sales process is cold outreach. I mean, massive companies. So yes, cold outreach works. Cold outreach itself is not the issue. What people get wrong about it is we love to buy, no one wants to be sold. And what people really hate is the inauthenticity of an outreach, right? And that's what so many people get wrong. Like, you reached out to me for this, right? Yeah. You sold me to be here. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we don't have any issue. And I didn't say yes because it wasn't something that I didn't have to pay for. There was value that I saw in it, right? And so I've done and helped companies. Actually, I had a client, he runs a logistics company over in Norway, I believe. And he's like, the people that I need to talk to, I can't really reach with Facebook ads, right? Like the CEOs, their presidents, their, government officials. And I was like, well, why don't you just reach out to them directly? And he was like, well, cold outreach doesn't work. And so I actually sat down with him. I shared my little process that I've taught for cold outreach. And his name is Gio. Gio took that, we just, scripted out for him. It was completely custom to him. But I was like, take this approach. And the next day, he was able to book a 15-minute sales call with the Ministry of Defense in Norway, which he ended up closing for a $50,000 government contract, right? From a cold outreach LinkedIn message. So again, I tell people all the time, it's not the cold outreach, it's the way we go about it. And people don't like to, like, just get to the point, right? Be short and discreet. Don't send me some long thing. Don't copy and paste. Like, make it personal to me. Like, I'll get something that someone says like, hey, I want to help you do sales. I'm like, you didn't even take a look at my profile, because if you did, you know that I've been doing and helping people with sales for a long time. And so if you can get that right, if you can bring value to somebody, like, and this is just an example off the top of the cuff, but if I'm like, hey, Abul, I've been seeing, we connected like last week. I've been seeing these interviews pop up on this, man. I have no idea what your end goal is for the podcast. I'd assume build an audience. But I think I may have an idea of how to, I see you're getting about probably 1,000, 2,000 views on this, how to get, to 10,000 views. Not sure if you'd be open to that at all. But I figured it'd be something we could chat about if you were interested. Right? That's just something.
If you sent me that message, I'd be like, let's jump on the call now.
Right. That's custom to you. There was like and I told you what I want. Like, dude, I think I can help you get to 10 to 20. It may not be, but hey, I figured I'd reach out. Like the authenticity of it. Like, hey, I'm not hiding some pitch. It was relevant to you. You have value in it as well. And it's like, cool, I'm down for that. That works on a large scale. So that is what I think most people are missing. And you can do it, but you got to do it effectively. If you're doing cold outreach effectively, you'll know it's not a numbers game, right? I don't want to be a machine gunner when I'm doing cold outreach. I want to be a sniper. I don't want that precision.
No, perfect. I've got one final question for you before I let you go, because you've been very generous with your time and you've dropped, value bomb after value bomb here. Final question is gatekeepers. A lot of people come across gatekeepers, and their job is to obviously guard the gate. How does one effectively get past the gatekeeper?
Yeah, so that's funny, because I was literally talking to a lady yesterday. So I'll just give you the exact strategy I gave to this lady yesterday. You guys can use this. We've used something similar in different industries before, but literally had a call with a lady yesterday. She's a life insurance agent for some company. The big company, they run TV ads and things, and they generate these leads. And then what I think is happening is the company calls the leads that they generate. They close who they close, but then whoever doesn't, they sell off to their little, these little independent life insurance people. And so she pays for these leads, and she's calling. She's like, I'm not closing. And a lot of people are saying they don't remember and things like that. And I was like, well, you have to change up what you're doing, right? And so we use this strategy for other companies too. There was another digital agency who works with hotels, and obviously they got to get to the hotel manager, and there's a bunch of gatekeepers and stuff. So basically, I was like, this strategy is something that works crazy good for cold outreach. It's a little foxy. It's a little sneaky, I'll be honest, right? But I told her this. I said, pick up the phone, right? Call them and say, when they pick up, say, hey, yeah, I got someone left me a voicemail for, and then whatever your thing is, right? So for this lady, I was like, someone left me a voicemail for, about getting some life insurance. And now if I'm a gatekeeper, the gatekeeper doesn't leave messages like that. So they're immediately going to be thinking, oh, they're returning whoever they're gatekeeping's for a call. That right there, 9 out of 10 times, if it's a true gatekeeper, is going to send you, they'll say, oh, yes, okay. And they'll, they're either hold on a second, and they'll go ask the person, and they're like, I don't know. And they'll send it through, or they'll just literally patch it through. If you get the person directly, the business owner, they're, yeah, I didn't leave any message about this. I say, well, do you need, I told her, I was like, well, tell them, do you need life insurance or not? Right? Because there's only 2 answers to that. And I helped her with rebuttals for both. Like for you, right? If I called you out of the blue, if somebody got your contact information, or an email, right? I got your email, and I said, hey, I'm replying back to the email you sent me about, boosting your podcast views. Like I didn't send anything. Like, okay, well, do you want to boost your podcast views or not?
Yeah.
You're like, well, yeah. You're like, sure. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then we can move into, a sales conversation or whatever. But that's so crazy that like a 2-minute like approach right there. Again, with my sniper ability, if I know who I'm reaching out to, what they actually do and need, that gets you past so many gatekeepers. Is that little tactic right there? It's just hardcore
Genius.
hammer.
Absolutely genius. Elijah, it's been a great pleasure having you on here. And this is one of my favorite interviews. Those of you who are watching and you're struggling with sales, do reach out to Elijah. I will tag him to this post. So I'm going to wrap it up by thanking you for joining us. You've been very generous, and I hope to catch up with you very soon.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime. I appreciate you having me on.